This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Yujiro Hanma would be cracked if he was in Dragon Ball. I was reading some parts of Baki and Dragon Ball recently, and started thinking, as a martial artist, wouldn't Yujiro fare pretty well in Dragon Ball? The more I thought on it, the more I realized, oh damn, yes he could. This video will be structured partially like a scaling video, and partially like a what if. We'll place Yujiro in the beginning of Dragon Ball, as an actual character in verse. We'll use his abilities and treat him like an actual Dragon Ball character and see how he develops and adapts. So I guess it's kind of like one of my Gauntlet videos in a sense, but not fully. So why is this a video in the first place? It's not like Yujiro has any fantastical superpowers, especially compared to later Dragon Ball characters, right? Well yeah, he's not firing laser beams or whatever, but he's not powerless by any means. Let's cover some of his abilities quick, mainly the ones that'll be relevant here, and then we can go into why he'd be such a great Dragon Ball character, at least in terms of strength. As you're probably already aware, even if you're unfamiliar with Baki, Yujiro is a master martial artist. He knows countless fighting styles and techniques. And also he can learn and copy from others really quickly. He's also been stated and shown to constantly improve his strength and abilities with time, and he can analyze opponents and fights with extreme precision. All in all, he's an incredible fighter in every aspect and basically superhuman when it comes to analysis. When it comes to those superhuman abilities though, Yujiro does have his own aura and can sense other people, and he also has some ki usage. Dragon Ball's ki works very differently of course, but this will be important later on, so keep that in mind, because it's still a concept in Baki more akin to the real world concept of ki. But for all we know, Yujiro might have one weakness. Sure, he's really strong physically, but maybe he has a blind spot. Maybe his data isn't protected. And that's where today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN, comes in. With all the online tracking that happens nowadays, and all the data breaches on top of that, having a VPN like Surfshark could be really useful. Surfshark helps protect you by encrypting your traffic and hiding your IP. So whether you're just trying to get rid of those annoying ads that know every little thing about you, or you just want to mask what you're doing, Surfshark's got you covered. And enhanced privacy and security aren't the only benefits of having a VPN. One of my favorite features from Surfshark VPN is being able to change my virtual location. This is great for unlocking content on sites that may be blocked in certain areas. Like for example, some streaming services may block certain anime, but just hop over to another country virtually, and then you're good. I've even personally used Surfshark for this before, and considering I do so much work online with YouTube, I also use it to keep my data secure. And after making a video about Yujiro, I really don't want him finding me and coming to speak to me. Jokes aside though, if you do want to keep yourself protected, or just enhance your online browsing experience, Surfshark's a great idea for you. Even better, there's a great offer right now. You can get an extra 4 months of Surfshark when you sign up right now. Just use my link, surfshark.com/saladbar, or use the code saladbar at checkout to get your offer. And once more, thanks again to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. So yeah, like I said, no crazy superpowers though. He's definitely superhuman and he has some weird things he could do, but most of his craziness comes from the fact that he's supernaturally intelligent as a person and a fighter, coupled with incredibly rapid growth and adaptation. One of the craziest things is that he can copy an ability after basically just seeing it once. And Goku can do this, it's really impressive in Dragon Ball, but when Yujiro does it, he essentially masters it in one try, and in some cases can use that skill better than the person he's copying from. Of course, we can't just say that and pretend that he has no limits, but it gives us a really good starting point. And as we go further into the story of Dragon Ball, you'll come to see that over time, his growth, mastery of martial arts, intelligence, and adaptation to every situation, it becomes a really deadly force. I have done another video calculating his power in a battle against Sukuna, which I'll link above. His regular scaling isn't too important here since he'll grow with time. Especially with Dragon Ball, we've seen Goku grow from only being able to destroy a car with a Kamehameha to, well, being able to destroy basically everything we can comprehend. But as a starting point, let's place Yujiro at a large city level, with massively hypersonic speeds because that's what I calculated in that last video. This is the lower end estimate from that video. And again, it's a rough estimate, and it's not important in the grand scheme of this video because of how Dragon Ball characters grow. It's just so you know a starting point for where he begins. With everything ahead, it doesn't really matter if you fully agree with that or not. You'll see what I mean. So now onto the actual story itself. We'll take current Yujiro too, and drop him in the beginning of the Pilaf arc. He has no clue where he is or why he's here, and we won't even involve him in the arc itself. But immediately, he notices differences around him. He even feels as if new power is flowing through him. This world is not like his, but that might work to his advantage. In this arc though, Yujiro being this strong is incredibly impressive. It basically makes him the strongest person on Earth by default, besides a handful of people who aren't in the story yet and full power Roshi. There's no way I could think to involve him in the actual story here, but in time, he gets to familiarize himself with the world here. Other warriors may even take notice of his own ki, while Yujiro looks for civilization. Eventually he'll find some sort of city, and with nothing better to do, he trains as usual. One other thing is that he likes hunting for fun, and there's a bunch of dinosaurs here which will be pretty fun for him to hunt. And he can do his usual stuff too. It's a weird world with animal people, flying vehicles, capsule devices, and the like. But eventually, after being around this civilization for so long, he comes across a flyer for a tournament, the greatest martial arts tournament on the planet. Interesting. That's right up his alley. Yujiro's gonna enter in the 21st World Tournament. Placing Yujiro in a tournament is very fitting. If Yujiro hasn't already found out how to utilize Dragon Ball's ki by now, he definitely will in this tournament since others will be using it, though I feel like he would have found it pretty quickly on his own. Ki is a real life principle after all, and one that Yujiro actually knows about because it's kind of a thing in Baki. Although Dragon Ball's ki is obviously very different, both from how it works in real life and Baki. Even with Baki's weird martial arts stuff, it actually lets you manifest that energy and project it outwards in countless ways when you're a master of it, and it allows you to do things like flying, sensing others, etc. People always joke about Yujiro having the ability to adapt his stuff to a crazy extent, but no funny shit, this might be the scariest thing about him in this video. He already knows it to some extent from Baki's verse, and with how good he is at copying others, this should not be hard for him to pick up on or emulate from someone else. The other people here have now given Yujiro the power to shoot ki blasts and such. That's terrifying. He'd encounter some pretty strong people here too. The strongest humans are here, and even an alien, though they think he's just a boy with a monkey tail. And everyone would definitely feel Yujiro's terrifying presence and wonder what type of power he has locked away. His ki would definitely feel malicious, but not in a way where he's like some sort of pure evil villain ready to destroy everything, but just like some chaotic force of nature. Here he could practice those newfound abilities too, and he'd probably make it pretty far in the tournament, if not winning the tournament. He'd definitely beat Goku at this point. Not only was he strong to begin with, but his accelerated development and adaptation to ki here would make him multiple times stronger than normal. For the final battle, it's him versus Jackie Chun. Jackie Chun, feels like something's off, and he thinks Yujiro's bad news. But this can at least be a lesson for his students still, and he won't hold back. It's a good thing neither of his students won, and there actually is someone out there that's way stronger than them. Given where Yujiro started, his growth to this point should increase his speed notably beyond Roshi's since he was already pretty high. In case it wasn't obvious, it's like this because of how Dragon Ball's growth works. And I didn't really delve into this too much just yet, but I think it's going to be important for the rest of the video, just so you have some context. Using the strongest human characters in Dragon Ball as a basis, combined with the skill and technique on the level of someone like Goku for example, Yujiro would quickly become cracked. We've seen various other human characters improve rapidly and increase their strength to superhuman levels with training. And yes, compared to people like Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, Broly, Frieza, anyone like that, even Piccolo, the humans aren't growing to a crazy extent, but comparing them to the upper echelon of characters in this story, it makes it really easy to lose sight of how far they've truly grown. And Yujiro would be no exception to this, especially with how quick he develops. Like, based on how characters like Krillin or Tien grew, Yujiro would keep increasing his power over time and at some point would start to see exponential growth. You might think maybe I'm being too loose with this, or even say it's like some sort of no limits fallacy, but no. We're treating Yujiro as if he's an actual Dragon Ball character here. He's been in this verse for a while. He has a completely different power system to adapt to. And let's look at Krillin as an example. And this is also ignoring Toei's Dragon Ball Z scaling or the movie scaling, and higher estimates from the manga too, just like a baseline for Krillin. From the 22nd World Tournament to Superhero, we have a time span of about 30 years. Without going too deep into his scaling, generally I see the consensus being that 22nd World Tournament Krillin is somewhere around town level. And of course the 21st World Tournament is beforehand, but there's not really a huge gap between these two. He's definitely stronger, but the gap isn't huge. And I know there's higher or lower estimates for Krillin, but we want to just use him as a quick example here. Compare his growth from the 21st to the 22nd to the 23rd World Tournament. By the 23rd World Tournament, he's Moonbuster at minimum because he surpassed Roshi. But again, you can make arguments for him being this level by the time the 22nd World Tournament rolls around. But I'm being a little more conservative just so we could apply that to Yujiro, and so you can see it's not too crazy to treat him like this. By the Saiyan Saga, Krillin is planetary at minimum, again using lower end estimates. Even between these arcs, it's pretty huge jumps with only a few years of growth. But then you fast forward to Superhero, which again, over 3 decades later. But currently in the story, he's a multiversal tier fighter, in both the anime and manga versions of the story. It sounds like a long time, but that growth is really insane. Within 30 years, it's exponential growth to a degree that you can't even begin to comprehend. And even crazier because Krillin's had periods of time where he wasn't training as much because he had his own personal responsibilities or just because he didn't feel like it. Yujiro, on the other hand, is like Krillin on crack. He's always glazed as the perfect fighter, and he's starting out with more experience than Krillin, and more power as well. Plus, he can adapt easier too, and unlike Krillin having periods of falling back from fighting, he's not going to do that. So realistically, his growth as a Dragon Ball character would be like Krillin's at absolute worst, and likely much better. So if we're saying he's starting at city level in the Pilaf arc, by the 21st World Tournament, using Krillin's growth at the lower end, as a very conservative estimate, Yujiro is going to be a Moonbuster by this point, if not better. And I cannot stress enough, I'm trying to be more conservative here. If you really want me to glaze Yujiro, you can go far higher than that. But let's just stick with that for now. So, back to where we were in the story. If we're being really conservative and using the very low end of estimates, his max power might overpower Yujiro, considering he's at least a Moonbuster here already. Though, it's not like he could use his full power constantly, and he's still slower. He also has other abilities like using electricity, And he is a master with ki in martial arts, but that's nothing Yujiro can't handle because he's already tanked lightning on his own already, and it's not like Yujiro's unskilled on his own. He may very well end up winning this battle through sheer speed and stamina, and due to Roshi's max power not being constant, and maybe even through strength. After this tournament, well, this is where the fun begins. The world of Dragon Ball is aware of Yujiro now, the strongest human. He's malicious, but thankfully not a random force of chaos like some other Dragon Ball villains. The Red Ribbon Army would attack him, to no avail. Actually, it might be the other way around. Yujiro did fight the US military basically for sport before, so he'd probably be the aggressor here. Before Goku encounters the Red Ribbon Army, Yujiro does, taking them all out. Even a hired mercenary like Tao wouldn't stand a chance. The 22nd World Tournament is a repeat of the last, but by now, Yujiro is definitely above the strongest Earthlings. With how quickly you can grow from ki usage, he's even beyond someone like King Piccolo, much less getting his youth. 23rd World Tournament, same thing, but now the gap is getting wider. Of course, warriors like Goku exist. Goku is probably the only person on Earth right now to possibly rival this level of growth, considering he's a Saiyan. Who knows? Treating this like a story, Yujiro might have some level of appreciation for Goku as a warrior, and the two would definitely want to fight each other. Otherwise, Yujiro's a 3-time World Tournament champion, and he's not stopping here. Things keep continuing like this, and it essentially keeps looping this way. Yujiro grows stronger, meets new opponents, adapts to their fighting styles and tests his own, then he grows even stronger. Rinse and repeat. Now, while his strength is constantly growing, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to copy every single thing his opponents can do. I'm just talking like fighting styles and maybe techniques. Though, to be fair, we've seen Goku copy things pretty quickly. He doesn't perfectly copy things right away, but it's quick enough where Yujiro might be able to pull off something similar. Though it's not like he's going to see Frieza, for example, and learn how to breathe in space. Nothing absurd like that, or any transformations for that matter. It's more like he sees Tien use the Kikoho. Oh, cool. He's seen something like that before. He tries it out for himself, executes it perfectly, and now he has the Kikoho. Things like that. While I did want to partially look at this like a what if, it would take too long and go way more in depth, so we won't go too deep into it. But if you are interested in this as a separate story-oriented video, let me know in the comments. Let's just keep going as if the same events happen, except Yujiro exists in this world. Exposure to ki made him a monster. He would face other opponents that would be interesting to him, like Raditz, then Nappa, then Vegeta, and so on. With advanced space travel at some point, and Yujiro knowing aliens exist, you know what he'd probably do next? He'd hunt. Either literally hunt aliens like he hunts animals, or use this as a way to fight other strong warriors, searching for ones he didn't even know about before. It shouldn't be too hard to steal a spaceship, right? He's like a much more reckless, chaotic Goku, one who's always looking for the next high. Knowing there's so many strong warriors out there, maybe he wouldn't be this proactive, and if he is, maybe he'd bite off more than he could chew, and he'd run into a threat too strong for him. When Cell shows up on Earth, assuming circumstances allow him to show up, he'd surely enjoy that. Dro would probably even make Cell in his image, trying to make him more like Yujiro if anything. And if we're going with the idea that he destroyed the Red Ribbon Army here, well, he'd be made to kill Yujiro in the first place. Then there's Boo, of course, assuming he even gets that far. Or Beerus, instead of looking for a godly rival, dreams of a demonic one, the Ogre. There's a whole multiverse of people out there. But once you get past the first few world tournaments, again, it becomes a loop for Yujiro. He wouldn't just be the most cracked Dragon Ball character, no. He'd be the most enthusiastic one. This world is made for him. He would thrive there. And even if he gets killed or doesn't become the strongest, it's a world of ever-escalating power. He'd have actual challenges and growth far beyond his imagination. This world would be a playground for him, whether or not he succeeds. And if he dies doing what he loves, participating in crazy battles. And he would just keep upping the stakes. While Yujiro started off weaker than the strongest Dragon Ball characters later on in the story, because he's starting where Goku did, he has a ton of room to grow and develop. He might even become aware of the Dragon Balls at one point, but I have no clue what he'd even want to wish for. It might even be a fun hunt for him though. Actually, leave a comment below if you have an idea of what he might even wish for. This is more of a thought experiment if anything, and definitely not an in-depth scaling video. But what do you see him doing in this world? Do you think his growth would be even crazier? Do you think he'd find companionship? Good rivals? Who knows? But either way, with his growth and his mindset, he'd essentially be the perfect Dragon Ball fighter, at least in my eyes. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Thanks again to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video.